Kris gets roasted in the comments for his views on Seiko. We hit or miss a watch good enough for a samurai. Sam sells off his entire collection. And we talk about types of watch collectors here in this episode of the Casual Watch Talk. So Sam, how have you been?
I've been good. How have you been?
Yeah, pretty good. Let's you know what we should do for this one? Let's do a wristwatch check and a possible obsession.
Okay. Yeah, I'm game.
And I'll let you kick it off.
Well, wristwatch check. I am wearing the Casio G-Shock mod that I did with the metal case. So this was it's not the DW60 5600. It's another model that's solar, but it's very similar. And I added that AliExpress case to it that I got. So the whole watch, I was in it for about $150. It's super comfortable. I've been wearing it nonstop.
Yeah, and yeah, little controversy with the Casio branding on it, but if it is a Casio and it wears like, and you know how much, what percentage of that is the actual module or the actual bracelet? So,
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, somebody did point out something correct in the comments that the one that's in the metal one's got Bluetooth. It's surrounding metal. It is enhanced, so I get it. But I think this is a great little mod for doing it. I need to do a video on it. I have filmed it. I just need to upload it. What have you been wearing?
Fun little mod. Speaking of fun little mod, for the occasion, I am wearing my Seiko, one of my original Seiko mods, which is not the SRP, the SNK mod that I did with my SKX 009 dial.
Yeah,
this is a fun, sort of like postmodern, futuristic. Fun watch. It's been it's on the fun orange silicone band. I'm pretty right to say that wherever you are, it's stupid hot out because it's hot here. It's hot pretty much everywhere. So definitely went for something a little more fun, and summertime is here.
Awesome. Well, if we're doing a watch obsession, this is going to lead nicely into one of our main topics later, but I hate myself for liking this so much because it goes against what we usually troll Seiko about. But have you seen this 35th anniversary tuner?
I haven't seen it.
Tuner?
No.
It looks incredible. The dial is blue to black gradient. It's quartz, a full-on tuner tool watch.
Mm-hmm.
They're calling it the 1986 limited edition, which isn't a birth year for me. In fact, I was well in long trousers by then.
Off to university by then, right?
not quite, but it certainly felt like it. At least I could spell my own name by that time.
That's right.
I think they've done an absolute excellent job of this. But of course, with it being Seiko, you know what I'm going to say next, Kris?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep, limited edition. And yours for a snip $2,600.
Oh, it burns. It burns. Yeah, we will talk about this. This is a topic. We have to cover this because I think some of our listeners haven't been with us on the whole journey, and I think sometimes we come off like grumpy old men about Seiko, and so I want to just like clear the air.
I think that would be a great topic for the show.
Nice.
What's been your watch obsession?
So yeah, I was ready to go. So I have on my shipping receipt that they have attempted delivery, and I ran out to the post box. I ran out to the mailbox, and there is nothing out there. So they attempted delivery, but I guess not to me, of my Citizen EcoDrive. So that obsession rolls on. No, I mean, really, like that obsession rolls on. And the tease, I mean, I posted the notes of like the tracking. They gave me the extended tracking notes, and I posted them on our Facebook group. And for those of you new, definitely check out our Facebook group. We've got a bunch of great folks in there talking about all sorts of stuff. So I posted it, and it's just like every little like, this day it was here, this day it was here, this day, and then we moved it to customs, and then we held it in customs, and then we handed it off to your however they say it, like your country's postal service. And I'm like, who is that? Because that could be like 3 people, you know. so it's like,
yeah, I sent a watch to my friend in Bangkok. Big shout out to Mark. And it must have took 6 weeks to get there. And it was bouncing around in LAX, and then it was bouncing around in the Bangkok International Airport, and then it must have took another 2 weeks to get to him. I thought it was lost. I was like, yeah. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. I've definitely seen some shipping stuff that take at least this one keeps, like, there was like a good solid 3 weeks that I got nothing, and so at least it keeps updating. So we'll see. I don't. They said they attempted delivery, but I ran to look if I had a note on my door or any, like, if I didn't hear the doorbell ring, if we're working from home, so right. we're here all the time now, so like we would have heard someone come by.
Well, we've got 2 pretty interesting topics, I would say, for the main body of the show. It's not going to be a traditional news type show this week, but before we do that, Chris, we'll have to stick with a bit of tradition. And should we do another thrilling episode of Hit or Miss?
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
This week, Chris, I present to you, it's a new G-Shock, and it is the Hana-Basara MRG Mr. G B2000BS-3A. And this is the Mr. G or MRG. That is it's the top of the range G-Shocks that they make. They're typically around $3,000, but this one they have gone all out. They're using a specific alloy developed in Japan. They've gone all out with this. It's samurai themed. They've highly polished everything. It's a 25th anniversary one, so it's limited edition. You get the little plaque on there, diamond-like carbon coating, facet cut bezel here. But it's yours for... They do the usual G-Shock stuff as well, which I always enjoy. I always enjoy reading that. But this watch is... Do you want to have a guess at how much this is? The normal one is $3,000.
Yeah, they did one of these like a couple of years ago, I think. Just like or these came out on the scene. I know they did the sort of this my introduction to them was a couple of years ago. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe they've had it because I think they've been around for longer. And this is their top of the line range. This watch is normally, what did you say? Like
they're normally around $3,000. Sometimes they'll do a limited edition that's $4,500-ish. I think they did a samurai one where they'd used a special technique on the bezel.
Yeah.
In fact, they've done a couple
That's
of those.
Right. Yeah, that's right. They did like they actually had a craftsman like hammer it. Like it was a hammered finish or something like that, where they actually had like a craftsman do it. All right, total shot in the dark, limited edition, top of the line. I'll say $15,000.
I couldn't find you have to inquire on the G-Shock website.
I
found one on Chrono24 and it's yours for a snip over $8,000.
Okay, so we don't even know if that's how much above retail. if we've got a G-Shock Mr. G bubble going on.
Well, I found one other online, and that was around $8,000. So if you look online, it just says I'm interested. Yeah, what do you think for the top of the range G-Shock $8,700? Is this a hit or a miss?
I have to put a caveat. These are so tough because sometimes I feel like I have to put a caveat on it, and I'm gonna say, if you're a G-Shock super fan, of course it's a hit. But it's not something for me. It's definitely not up my alley. It's cool. So you know what? I'll give it a hit because it's cool. I'll do that.
I actually agree with you. I think it is pretty cool. I like the design that they've done. It's probably not the color choice that I would pick, but definitely when you hear about the history and the romance of it, maybe they're testing the waters. Maybe the $8,000 G-Shock is going to be. But there's a great video online that shows the factory or this specialist craftsman that they hire to make these G-Shocks. Yeah. And it's no joke.
I feel like they're really hitting that sweet spot that exists between the fashion, but also we are actually crafting it out of specialty materials. So like, part of me wants to be like, if this was just the colors, like they did, like that funky one where they just did the bracelet in every color, where they just like alternated the bracelet. Absolutely would not a fan of that. Because right, it just feels like they pulled parts out of a bin. But here, where it's multiple colors, it feels like there's someone making a design choice. And yeah, I think you're right as far as maybe G-Shock is testing the waters and kind of saying like, well, how far will our fans go? And like I said, if you're a G-Shock like super fan, I mean, if I saw someone wearing this and I know what it is, I'd be like, holy shit. like that's a serious piece, and you're super, you probably have a ton of these, and you know what's going on.
There was that big celebrity exhibition fight, wasn't there, with Floyd Mayweather? And he's got bejeweled G-Shocks where he's had diamond encrusted bezels put on them and things like this. So maybe that is the target audience for this limited edition, super exclusive.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I think we'll call it a hit then.
Okay. All right. If you're right, a target market hit. asterisk, a hit for the target market.
Before we dive into our main topic, we have a sponsor for this week, and this is a brand that I've covered, or at least a group of watchmakers based in Singapore that I've covered before on the channel. But they're launching a new watch. It's called the HVD watch. It's soon to be on Kickstarter. This watch has got some impressive specs, Kris. All the usual that you would expect from a dive watch, stainless steel, 120 grit bezel, but it's using a Sellita movement that I've not seen in a watch before. It's the SW210, and it's a hand-wound Sellita movement. They sent me one over to have a look at. Really nicely fitted bracelet, excellent clasp on here, nicely proportioned. For all you fans of no-date watches, which I'm not one, this doesn't have a date on it, but the dial was gorgeous. Distressed dial with the gold indices and gold hands. Now, it's going to come to Kickstarter, and amazingly, this watch is going to be $399 on Kickstarter, which for the specs, I think is just fantastic. So a big shout out, and thanks for sponsoring this week's show, guys over at HVD. Thanks, Travis, for sending it over, and I wish you all good luck for your Kickstarter. And guys, we'll leave the link in the description down below. Well, Kris, this week, one of my guilty pleasures is watching the guys over at the Timepiece Gentlemen.
That's right, yeah.
I think I really like their channel, and it gives you a whole different perspective on the watch community, as well as Roman over at the Grey Market channel as well, which I'm really enjoying. But that real insight into a watch dealer, because before I think you had the only insights you got were from Paul Thorpe and Federico, who'd been but the scale that the Timepiece Gentlemen are doing at it, and Roman over at the Grey Market channel, it's really impressive. But this week they've been trying a lot of things, longer form videos and these sort of clips. But this week what I thought was interesting is they did a shorter show where they talked about their sales, but then they also responded to a lot of the feedback that they'd been getting. So some around that maybe they're a bit too flashy with money, and people would rather see more watch stuff. So they just addressed it back to the audience and said, okay,
nice.
Well, let's clear up a few areas. So I thought it would be interesting if we did that. A bit of inward reflection and clearing up a few things that we say.
Yes, let's clear up a few things. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'll kick it off right here. We teased it at the top of the show. And Seiko is a beloved brand by both of us. We both have Seiko watches. I modded them for ages. And I think some of the stuff that we say sometimes, I think we sort of have to do a caveat like we're doing right now, where we say like, this is the state of the state. So the upward trend, them going up market, I looked, they announced basically they were going to start doing that in 2019. So like, this didn't happen over a 10-year period. This, like 2019, they just basically said, listen, we're going to go up market. We're going to try to charge more for our stuff. We're gonna, their move, they had officially separated out Grand Seiko. So Seiko was kind of, on its own to market and sell its Presage dress watches, its Prospects dive watches, etc. And so up until that point, I don't know about you, but like I bought a SKX, and I'm looking at my notes here. I bought an SKX 009 to mod it in 2018 for $180, right? And so if you're just getting into the watch, if you guys are just getting into watches, just realize that Sam, what did you like? What was your you bought a special edition turtle? Was it, you picked it up for like 350, 400?
Yeah, I picked a special edition, the Save the Ocean turtle. I think I picked it up for 285 because at that time they were plentiful. But you're right, when I started doing this channel, I did a few SKX 009 videos. I bought into the hype of it. TGV was synonymous with singing the praises of this watch, and I bought into it. And honestly, you might like the aesthetics of it, but the movement really wasn't that good. And that watch was probably on its way out, but it got such a buzz around it that, I mean, I got one, like you said, $170 or something in SKX.
Yeah, exactly. So from our standpoint, again, as I alluded to, as grumpy old men, we used to be able to get these, for under $200, and the SKX didn't have a hacking hand winding movement, so it wouldn't hack it wouldn't stop the seconds, and you wouldn't hand wind it. So you just kind of had to do the Seiko shake, which was a novelty, and it's and I think that was fine in a super durable, ISO certified, beginner, get us all started in a watch collecting hobby, $180, $200 watch. Fantastic.
Yep.
And so we've come from there. And so here we are 2 years later, and now you can't find them. I mean, besides the fact that the SKXs are discontinued, your Seiko turtles are in the 360 and up range. Even though they might be listed as MSRP, they're very hard to find less than that. And like I said, we're used to much less than that. And then to address the movement, so this mod that I did, this has I don't know if you'll hear it, but hand winding. So this has an NH35 hand winding hack stop seconds. That movement is $40. You can buy them all day.
Yeah, exactly. So we just want to, I know we get a couple of comments when we sort of poking fun at Seiko, but it does have a serious tone to it, I think, because they're definitely going for that. And some people argue this with Rolex as well, but Seiko are trying to go for that mid-range luxury. So the type of things where you get Longines, Hamilton, Rado, most of the ones that you'll find at like TWIW or something like that, where they're up at this sort of 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 model. Seiko are reaching for that, but what they're not doing is improving the watches significantly. And that's what,
and that's our exactly. That's our main sort of frustration, because you're getting, so you're putting the TRD S badge on the Toyota Camry, but it's the same motor, and it's not a no other upgrade, and they're charging 10, 15, 20% more for something with it. And to flip over to micro brands, I think that any micro brand, so I personally, if they offer it, if they have a Swiss option and like an NH35, I would go, or the Miyota, like a 9105, something like that. I'm an accuracy snob, so I'm going to go with that. You don't have to be like that. You don't have to be crazy like me. Some of those watches, like the Islander is a perfect example. Those are in the $300 range, and they're coming with sapphire, and they're coming with luminous bezels and display cases and hack and hand wind. I mean, so the Islander can do it, then Seiko can do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Check out Mark over at Long Island Watches, because he's basically, without intentionally doing it, he's showing what can be done with the same components, the same movements, steel, sapphire crystal, the same luminous material that's using. He's showing what can be done. And this is the thing with Seiko at the moment, is they're charging $1,500, $1,500, and the movements in them, for that price you can get an ETA movement, and there is no comparison between the Seiko Japanese, the 7S26, the NH35A, the 6L15s. There's no comparison between them and a ETA movement. ETA movements are Solita movements, significantly better in keeping time, accuracy, their response to shock, their response to temperature variance.
Some of these special editions not only can't find them at retail prices, or below retail, but now you have the eBay scalper problem.
Yep.
Where if you say, hey, we're going to do a limited edition watch, and somehow get it on to a couple of the watch blogs, you're going to get a bunch of eBay scalpers that are going to gobble those all up. And you, being a fan of that, are not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to get a hold of one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was a real turning point. I think one of the monumental turning points in this was the Hodinkee Blue Alpinist, wasn't it? Where people were scalping them and then selling them for double the price. And those people that were paying that were realizing that it's a good watch for $300-$400, but when you're knocking on $1,000, you bought it off eBay, it's not value for money. So Seiko are fantastic at creating those everyday watches. The $300-$400 mechanical watches, I don't think there's another comparison other than Seiko when you could get those watches. The dials, the Seiko dials are stunning, but their economies of scale, they're one of the biggest watch companies in the world. So it's a farce to make a limited edition when at your disposal you could make 1 million watches in a couple of months period without even blinking. It's a farce to make a limited edition watch just for the sake of doing it, which is what they've unfortunately gravitated towards, my view.
Yeah, and it is the same exact thing with, can you imagine if they were to, economies of scale, up their movement, up their different materials for the money, and really start to move into that. That's what we want to see. So we want to see them. We want to see them better movements, sapphire everything. Come up to the level that the micro brands have now dominated. And let's make it so that the base Seiko is the best value diver again. That's what we want to see.
Oh, 100%. And if you had and we've mentioned this countless times on the thing, we've talked about it that much. I hope we manifest it from our own imaginations. But the $1,500, $2,000 Seiko spring drive, the Seiko spring drive, arguably, with exception of maybe the coaxial movement, the single greatest advance in mechanical movements that there's been in many, many, many years at the mid-range movements. Incredible, like to get a mechanical movement within a second or two a day consistently because of that. But they're reserving those for the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 Grand Seikos. If you had that in a $1,500, $2,000 Swatch Richemont group would be quaking in their boots. And why Seiko don't do that is probably because the people that buy their watches aesthetically like them, but probably don't realize that the movements in them have not advanced forwards, which I think is a shame. It's a shame, especially their size.
And we'll talk about, and we'll talk a little bit more about, types of collectors as we go a little further in the show here. But yeah, that's all right. Clear in the air.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So we love Seiko. If you
Absolutely.
love Seiko, we are fans. We are fans as well. We just think they can do better. We're not upset. We're just disappointed.
That's right. We're always hardest on our favorites.
Exactly. We mock what we love. Except Hodinky, we just mock them for the sake of it.
Directly. So Sam, you posted a very disturbing to me post on the Facebook group. This is why you should join the Facebook group, because you get this kind of insider first. So Sam went and listed, did you just listed about, I don't know, like eight watches? Did you list all your watches on there?
A lot of them, yes, definitely 70% of the collection or so.
I went on and I think we had a conversation. It was funny is because I chatted you something and then you sent something to me, and then like 2 hours later I get on Facebook and like Sam's whole collection is up for grabs on various sites, and I just like, is he mad at me? Did he just like throw up his hands and he's just done with all of it? And so I just posted the head explosion emoji is what I went for on that one. So Sam, what's going on? You're you had a bunch for sale there. What's happening?
Yeah, I think what's weird is I like collecting watches, but I don't like having a large watch collection, which I know for some people it's weird. It does sound weird when I say that. I know why that's the case, but what happened was we did, Todd, who's a member of the Facebook group, he's been on the podcast a couple of times, big shout out to Todd. He visited Florida. He was on a work trip, so we met up and he came round to the apartment. And as we do watch lovers, I started getting my watches out and showing him, oh, this is what, all this. And then I suddenly stepped back, and once they were all laid out on the table, I was like, oh wow,
geez.
that is a big...
Just crisis.
That is a big watch collection, and I'm extremely fortunate. I'm extremely fortunate, although it's taken a lot of work. But I'm extremely fortunate that the channel is big enough now that companies kindly send me watches in for review.
Yeah.
And this is a whole, a whole separate topic that we're going to address in an upcoming show, because good friend to the show, Ben from Ben's Watch Club, just did a video on this on watch YouTubers, which we're definitely going to do a show on. When I get a new watch, that is everything that I only wear that watch. So I suddenly neglect my other watches. And then I also realized that, especially with buying the Rolex, I think that I need to focus the collection a bit. So I've sold a lot. Join the Facebook group, guys, because I always offer things on the Facebook group first. If it's I give away watches on there. So definitely join the Facebook group. But yeah, going back to watches that I sold on there, I mean, really, there is only 3 keepers in the collection. Honestly, I mean, I like the watches that I've got now. I love my Breitling B1. I can't imagine selling that. But really, there is only 3 keepers. This is one of them, which is my grandfather's Casio from the 70s. I've got my other grandfather's Timex, and I've got my father-in-law, Alec, who sadly passed away nearly 5 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. I've got his watch, which was a CWC watch, which I gave him, and then unfortunately I got it back in the worst way possible. But those 3 watches are the keepers.
Okay, those are the permanent keepers. Yeah,
permanent keepers.
Sure. Right,
and then I have basically flirt with the others a bit. But I'm really happy with it. I want to pare it down to 4, really. I think I'm the happiest when I've got 4 watch collection, even though arguably I'll always have more than that, because I've got those 3 plus the swatches.
Yeah, and let's and so one of the things that when we're kind of talking about this episode, one of the things we were talking about is you have because you're doing the reviews on the show, you have more of a chance to sort of have that inward retrospection, sort of looking and then looking at your collection and saying all right, well, this particular watch I like from this one company, but what does that say about me, and what does that say about these other watches that I've collected? I think more than anybody else, and I think it's a healthy exercise, but as a YouTuber, probably becomes unhealthy for you.
I would agree with you, actually. It's because you're always, especially with the micro brands that I like to do on the channel, each one of them now, I would say you never get, very rarely these days do you get a micro brand that's awful. They usually, especially the things that are coming out of Singapore, Hong Kong, the watches now are coming out and they're incredible. Titanium, Boulder is a prime example of this. That HVD one, we just did a sponsor for it. Each one is coming out and you reassess what is value for money, especially in the Mac. Veya, I still think, is one of the best. You'll never that Veya watch, that tropical one. I just love that one. That one you didn't see for sale
right.
at all.
Okay.
Being as I'm reviewing them, and once I've reviewed them, then I mentally am on to the next one. I think my own watch collection gets treated like that.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah. And and I want to say, I'm not trying to fix Sam. This is not, I think that there are other watch collectors in the same sort of state, and and I don't want to presume that something was wrong, for when I see what kind of comes and goes with your collection, you've always been a minimalist, so you have that tea kettle, raising the boil slowly on the number of watches. So you'll get like 6, 8, say 10, 10, 12, and then of course when you lay them all out and you say like, oh, I've got this and I got this and I get this, and not that it's collection for collection's sake, but it's just how you've sort of come to get it. And then you just had this moment where you're like, it's like boiling water and you're like, I got to get this thing down to 3, 4.
Yeah. And just to address one thing as well, I can probably count on one hand the watches that I've ever sold for a profit. So I'm not flipping them.
Right.
It's not like I'm getting them in the churn and burn.
Of your 3, 4, are you down to particular types? Are you filling a type category? Are you filling in I want to know, like, what's your 3, 4 categories? Your like beater, your tool watch, your everyday, like, what's that?
Yeah, I definitely think about it like that. I mean, of all the ones that I've got left, I mean, I've still got the majority of the ones are either on eBay or offered them on the group. So assuming that they all sell, and I've also given a few away. That one I sent to my friend Mark in Bangkok. So I've got the Breitling B1, which I think is an excellent quartz watch, and not only that, but it feels really nice. It was funny because when Todd came over, he tried it on, and I'd not seen it on anybody else. And when I was looking at his wrist, I'm like, God, that is a good looking watch.
You're like, damn.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, that is a good-looking watch. I've got that beautiful Veya, that tropical, that dive watch that they made. I've done a couple of videos for Veya, and not always for a watch in return. I love what those guys are doing, but that tropical one that I reviewed a different one, and I wasn't expecting them to send me one, but they did, and I love that thing. I mean, Miyota Movement. I think this year, say the last sort of 12 months. I've started getting watches with Miyota Movements, and I didn't realize, because I'd only ever had like the 8000 series before, and I was like, oh my God, this is rubbish, this with the loud, noisy rotor. I didn't realize that that 9000 is a real step up. And then I've got the G-Shock, obviously, that I made, and I would struggle. I would morally struggle to sell this. I would obviously fully list that I'd modded it.
Yeah.
But everything else I'm basically trying to say. Of course, the Rolex as well, which I class as both an investment and a dress watch.
All right. So Sam still has watches. That's good. All right. And I was watching a pretty good video of Not So Obvious Watches, Pete McConville. And we'll put a link in the description, and we'll post it up. But he was talking about watch collector types, and it was super super fascinating video. Kind of goes through them quickly and talks about it. So check out the video. But it's stuff we'll talk about here, and I think it relates when you start to ask yourself, like, why do I like this particular watch? Why do I like this one? Why am I keeping this? as a type of collector, I mean, I think that, we love, as humans, we love to categorize and put people in little buckets, right? What's interesting about this list is I don't think anyone is 100% in any particular group. And so Pete's list is accountant, craftsman, engineer, aesthete, socialite, and herald. And we'll talk about those a little bit. But what's interesting is you can be in many multiple of the different groups. Now, I was looking at it. I think even I have certain watches where I feel like I'm a different type of collector for.
Right, interesting.
If I look at a tool watch, like if somebody says like, all right, you're going to go on a hike and, you're going to be in the woods, right? Well, I really could care less what it looks like. The aesthetics of it, don't really care. Don't really care that it's, maybe if I'm going with if it's a camping trip, I'm taking my SLR on and I want to be on Instagram, then maybe I could be a socialite about it. Here's my cool Mr. G. But for those types of watches, strictly engineer, accuracy standards, materials, what does it do? This sort of stuff.
Is it worth us listing down the categories?
Yeah. So accountant is worried about cost, resale, profit, commodity, watches as an investment, these sorts of things. Craftsman, very much the personal touch, like is the watch created by a craftsman? Does it have how crisp is the printing, the polishing, these sorts of things? Engineer is worried about accuracy, the standards, the new materials, and then sort of it's interesting, under those three, Pete lists and breaks it out, and he breaks out and says of those three, you can be the movement freak, which I definitely like, or I call myself an accuracy snob. So
I would say that I'm that. And it's funny looking at even just the first categories that you've mentioned, where I think that I might be in a couple of those.
Yeah. And so, so your accuracy snob, your movement freak, that's sort of a subset of those three, the accountant, craftsman, engineer, because it feels like, if you're a craftsman, then it has to be polished and amazing, but of course it keeps amazing time. And of course the movement is gorgeous, this kind of thing, like, and perfect. Right. And then aesthete, which is tough for me to say, but aesthete, all about the looks. So is it beautiful to the wearer? Not necessarily to everybody else, but is it beautiful to you? Do you love how it looks? And like, I think about some of the watches I have where I'm sort of like that. Socialite, literally how many likes and follows you get, how many retweets. I mean, I had a watch just recently that I sold that was what I called an Instagram darling, because it felt great to just post it. I could do a fun color background and everybody like, this watch is amazing. And you're like, yeah, it's also clunky and I don't want to wear it and I'm terrified of taking it in the water. And and then finally the last one is the herald. So you're about the story, the narrative, the provenance, so the first moon watch, the deepest dive watch, the origins of the brand, you're looking for that, like, provenance, that story that kind of goes with it.
Totally agree with this. In fact, as you've been going through these categories, I can think of even people on the Facebook group that would fall into those categories, certainly. I think this is actually a great breakdown of the different types of watch collectors. I think that I probably fall into the engineer and the accountant category, I think, because I am an accuracy snob as well. I enjoy a watch less if there is, say, if a watch was losing or gaining. In fact, for some reason, it bothers me more if it's losing time than if it's gaining time. But say if a watch is losing time a couple of seconds, 5 seconds here or there, that's nothing. But if it's like 8 to 10, when you've regulated my watches, you know that I get really uncomfortable with them, and it changes my view of the watch. Whereas I know, Stephen on the Facebook group, he loves the look of the watch, the history of it, the aesthetics of it, and he doesn't care
about...
and
it doesn't, and it doesn't matter, which we have to, again, we kind of this whole show has been about introspection, looking internally, and that is that's something that sort of comes with it. So like when we look at these watches, we're looking at from maybe one of these perspectives that is not necessarily yours. So
yeah, and I agree, and I wish also what at the moment I'm in very much the honeymoon period with the Rolex. It's in perfect condition at the moment, and I keep mentally thinking to myself, I'm going to have to change the way I think about this watch, otherwise I will never wear it. Right. So whereas I'm thinking about it as an accountant, keeping it in resale condition, I need to think about it as an engineer or an aesthete, where this is my watch, this is my tool, this is my watch that I wear. It's my, and if it scratches, it's just power for the course. I like the way it looks, so it represents who you are as a person. I mean, that's important to that group. And what's interesting again about this is I have different sort of levels that I could put myself in based on different watches too. Yeah,
I've had watches where the sales process or the return process or the any sort of like the customer service process has totally changed my feel about the watch. And that sort of that herald that, like, I wouldn't necessarily say like like the feelings that I had, like, oh yeah, this brand is cool, and that checks off the accountant, like it's a good cost for money, it checks off the engineer, yep, it's decently accurate, and it's a tool watch, whatever. And okay, they've been around and making particular watches for 15 years, and they've got a cool story, whatever. But then like customer service just falls flat, and you're looking at this watch and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna think about this every time I look down at this. I'm gonna think about this like crazy return policy that they have, or something like that.
Going back to the Rolex, I'll have to do a little shout out for Lee on the Facebook group, who got a date just, and then he's got an Explorer, and he works as a golf course, and he was doing the gardening, cutting the lawn, up trees in his Rolex. Right. And I was, rather than being like horrified, I was like, God, I wish right. I just would just do that. You're like, right. You're like, wish it could be me. Yeah. Yeah. I wish that I wouldn't even think about it. That's very cool. And that's cool. Yeah. And it's amazing, like, how robust his Explorer is. Cause I think he had an accident. Hope you're feeling better, Lee. But at work, and the Explorer was fine. I think people on the Facebook group were reading the story going, oh, Lee, I hope you're all right. But everyone was thinking, oh, I hope that Explorer's all right. But post pictures of the Explorer, because we don't want to, like, so we're talking service costs, what are we talking? And you're like, oh, I'm fine, but how about... That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I know certainly the Herald, there's a few people on the Facebook group, I think, that are definitely like that. So, Rob comes to mind, where he really knows the history of the brand, and then Lawrence, of course, who he really likes the king of the mid-range watches, where he also really likes the story and the emotional collection to where he's bought that watch at certain periods of his life. So I think this is a really interesting list. I think he's done a good job of this, actually. Yeah, absolutely. So definitely check out the video and his YouTube. But yeah, we are definitely going to keep this in mind, sort of these future watch conversations we have. I mean, I try to be sort of open to, and as we say it, like we were talking about the hit or miss today, and like, well, for that particular person.
And so trying to be open, and kind of open to it.
Well, guys, let us know what you think of the show in the comments section. Head on over to the Facebook group. Let us know what type of collector you think you are. Yeah, and big thanks to Pete McConville over at Not So Obvious Watches for coming up with this list. It really inspired this show, so big thanks to him. As always, we appreciate you watching and listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.